Welcome to Sons of the Flag Radio, brought to you by Fire Engineering Blogtalk Radio. Before we begin tonight's episode, let us take a moment to remember our fallen brothers and sisters that we've lost since our last show. Dennis Strait, Michael Lubig, Daniel Lucius, Michael Goulet, Christopher Roy, John Ostergaard, Scott Danheimer, Bobby Dunaway, Natalie Dempsey, Christopher Truman, Eric Cosette, Stephen Pollard, Jason Bird, Brendan Pierce, Thomas Nye, Joel Barnes, Jacob Ringering, Michael Bernstein, Daniel Laird, James Woodman, John Lemming. May we take a moment of silence for these heroes. Tonight our guest was the focus of our most recent Guns for Sons raffle, Lewisville Firefighter Andy Allison. Andy was medically retired from the Lewisville Fire Department after being injured in a house fire on August 12, 2012. While putting out a small fire in the laundry room, Andy came into contact with some power lines. After several years of doctor's visits, numerous surgeries, searching for continuous answers, and hitting major roadblocks in his recovery process, Andy was told at 31 years old that he was not going to be returning to his job, the career that he once loved and he always called his dream job. Joining us tonight in this episode will be Andy's wife, Amanda, along with the Lewisville Assistant Fire Chief, Terry McGrath. If you feel compelled by this story tonight, you can help Sons of the Flag support firefighters like Andy by taking the St. Florian vow. You can text the word JOIN to 682-204-1729 to begin the fundraising process today, or you can email Chad Groover at chad@sonsoftheflag.org for more information. I turn this interview over to our National Task Force Director, Chad Groover.
Andy, tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Collinsville, Texas. When I was born, I lived in Bells, Texas. My dad worked at Oscar Mayer, and then he decided to become a firefighter. So he applied at Lewisville. It was open applications. It's been almost 30 years now, I guess. And as soon as he got the job, he built a house for my family in Collinsville. It was awesome. I think I moved there when I was 5 years old. My brothers were real little. We lived in a camper, and actually all the firemen built the house. Probably Chief McGrath was up there pouring concrete and roofing, and I think they built their house. It's 4,000 square foot. They built it for $52,000.
Wow.
So, and it's a very beautiful house. It's nice, but you can definitely tell there was a lot of help and love and support for my dad and mom and us three. We lived in a camper for a year, a little camper actually, and I don't know. The Allisons are pretty wild, so it was pretty interesting.
And that goes back to when you were a dirt bike racer, correct?
Well, it was probably before I was racing dirt bikes, because this was before that. I started after we moved to Collinsville. Started racing all over, and I think I was 12 then. We lived in the camper. Then the guys built the garage, and that was like the big win. I mean, we're all dancing when they get the water put in, and they build the garage, and we move into the garage. We all have little sections of that, and then we lived there until they built the house.
Let me just clarify something.
Okay.
So when his dad had a group of us come up there, I'm driving to Collinsville, and I'm thinking that it's I'm thinking a camper, triple slides, and I come around the corner over the hill, whatever it was, and I think this was probably one level above a pop-up. So
This is a 24-footer.
It's a very close-knit family.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
So your father was a Lewisville firefighter. Obviously, firefighters were around you your whole life.
Yeah.
What made you decide to want to be a firefighter?
Well, actually, it's not probably what you think. My dad is, although he is extremely passionate for firefighting or any kind of first responder, he is not about pushing you into a career that you're not passionate about. So he never actually asked me or my brothers if that's what we wanted to do. I mean, I came to him later on. I graduated high school from Collinsville. I have a bunch of family that were actually in the fire service. My great uncle was the chief of Sherman. So I was around it, and I loved it. I had a lot of friends that were kids to some of the Lewisville Fire guys, and I wanted to pave my own path. So I came out of high school and moved to Waco, and I went to pilot school, and that was right after 9/11. I graduated in 2002, so that next year. And although I loved the school, I loved what I was learning. That's where Bush lands when he was president. He was landing there, and when he did that, they would have to shut down the strip. So, I spent 2 years down there and got about a 1/16 of what I was supposed to get in flight hours. So my dad, looking at this, and he's like, this just isn't going to work. So it's time for you to move home. We'll go to a local place in Sherman. We'll get your flight hours back up, and then we'll go from there. And actually, I did that. I moved home, went to Sherman, checked it out, and I came home one day, and I was talking to my mom, and a fire class walked in. We were at lunch, and it was just a rookie school. And I was watching them cut up, and they just seemed to be having a lot of fun of guys that didn't know each other. They just met. It was like the second week of class, and they were just hamming around. And I told my mom, I'm looking for something like that, some kind of enjoyment in life. I spent, like you said, I've raced motocross. It says, you bring yourself to the race. It's not a team sport. I did that all through high school, so I didn't really ever have a team activity other than my brothers. So I was watching this scenario play out, and that's kind of how it led me to it. I went home. I asked my dad what he thought. He told me, if you're looking for an easy way out, or if you're looking for some way to get out of the house and make easy money, this isn't the road. But if this is something that you really want to do and you're going to be passionate about, then I support you 100%. But once you make this choice, I'm going to be hard on you because you're going to see a lot of things and go through a lot in this career, and I want you to be prepared. So it was kind of a defining moment in our relationship. Mm-hmm. The next semester I signed up for fire school, and here I am now.
When did she come into your life?
I actually met her at the fire station. She, my friend that I worked at Pilot Point part-time.
Yes, sir.
And I was a captain there for a couple years. It was really pretty cool because my whole family worked there. My dad was the chief. I worked there for a little while, and both my brothers. And one Christmas, probably just to cap my years of the fire service, Christmas morning we got called for a fire, and we all were at home, and so we all got in the chief's wagon and went, and I drove the engine. My brother rode backwards, both of them, and my dad was riding the seat, and we went and fought this, 5,000 acre huge grass fire. I mean, multiple departments, huge. It was Christmas Day. Of course, my mom was pissed, but typical. She stays mad at us, so that was normal. But anyways, we had a lot of good times at Pilot Point, and a friend of mine started there, and he worked with Amanda at the water park in high school, and she brought a friend up to see the fire trucks and fire guys, I guess. I'm not real sure. He wanted to, I think he was sweet on this other girl, so he was bragging about how cool his job was. So, and then she came up, and I hit on her, and then at the time I may or may not have been in the end of a relationship, and so that kind of really didn't go over well with her. The hitting on her part when I wasn't free and clear. So that kind of stopped the deal. And then like a year later, I got hired at Lewisville. And then that same year, I was single, and I thought, okay, now that I've cleaned my life up, I'm going to give her a call. And that's kind of how it happened.
Amanda, your side of the story?
Yeah, that's about right. He was pretty brutally honest with himself there. So, but it worked out great. Our first date didn't go as planned. I was a little bit late.
Okay.
I woke up an hour and a half after I was supposed to be meeting him for our first date.
A little late.
So that went over well. But he turned around and met me there. So I called him. I'd had surgery a week before. So I had taken a little nap, I guess. And I woke up and I called him and I said, I'll see you in 20. And he actually turned around and met me there, which was great. I don't think he would have believed me, except that I had sleep lines all over my face.
She did have a big sleep.
So,
I
came prepared for a first date. But it worked, because here we are.
And how long y'all been married?
7 years this year.
Awesome.
I would have let Andy answer that.
I should have.
Yeah.
I saw him pause.
I'm over here.
No, I saw his whole face.
Looking at this whiteboard,
yeah,
I'm thinking
written on his face.
I'm doing algebra over here, trying to figure out.
That's what the notepad's for.
I know. I should have started writing.
Okay, so Andy, tell me about your career in Lewisville. When did you start?
Let's see. Lewisville had nepotism, so I wanted to work there, but my dad worked there.
Mm-hmm.
And when he retired, he did 23 years at Lewisville. And, actually, Chief McGrath is the one that hired me. I worked in McKinney Fire Department and went through paramedic school, and I got divorced and had my grandfather died. I had a lot of really bad things happen while I was in paramedic school, and I stumbled. I mean, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I had a hard time. Paramedic school is hard, and I passed and became a paramedic. But in that, I needed to look for a new job, and I applied. Actually, it's kind of funny because my brother and I applied at the same time, but they would only hire one of us.
And he works in...
Now he's a driver in Arlington. He's fixing to promote to lieutenant real soon.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah.
Yes. So, we go into the written, and I think I beat him by 1 point. And we come out of that and do the physical, and I think he beat me a little bit. It's hard to admit that, but I was a little bit older than him, So, and then we went to the interview, and we actually rode to Lewisville together. And we did the interview, and on the way home, Chief Brown, who was then the assistant chief, called me and told me I got the job, and then told me to hand my phone to my brother. Told him he didn't get the job. So it was kind of a long ride home, although I am oldest, and I'm more handsome, so I should have got the job.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So I get the job, or the job offer, and that Chief McGrath had to do his background, and he, called me. We went through everything, and, he laid it out, how I could get the job and what kind of person I had to be. And, it's a tough process getting hired in the fire service.
Yes, sir.
And especially after some of the, stumps I hit on the road up. But he gave me a job, and I was thankful. And, I mean, hopefully I made him proud. I didn't work there very long because I got hurt. But
Chief McGrath, your recollection of it?
You know what? Andy's story is a good one, and I use it quite a bit when we talk to people that looking to get into this line of work, and they get concerned about something that they feel like it might be an impediment for them. But as far as Andy making us proud, I mean, Andy continues to make us proud each and every day, and I think as we get through this and people hear his story, you'll kind of you make your own opinion, but I'm quite certain that you land on the side that it's an unbelievable story. But I think what makes it unbelievable is the kind of person that he is, and so other than the fact that I would regret anybody getting hurt in this line of work, Andy's been truly probably one of the best employees that we've had.
Awesome. So Andy, what do you remember about the fire?
Well, first was the bragging rights of the fire on the way there, because we were at the time, I was at Station 3 riding the engine. This was the third shift in a row that we actually had a fire. third shift in a row for a fire. And, we had a step-up captain, and for some reason we were just on this crazy run where every time he worked, we fought a fire. And I happened to be riding backwards all 3 shifts, so I don't know how that worked out. So we get a tone out, and it's in Central's district, and they happen to be getting their wellness check. So, the whole way there, we're just pumped. Not only are we fighting the third fire in a row, we're also taking it from Central. We know we're going to be first in. Everything was great. We get there, the fire was ripping. I mean, it's a single-story house. I mean, it was hot. It was smoke rolling out. I look at pictures today and think, man, that's so crazy that we fought that. Probably the best fire of my career, although it is my last fire. It was a hot fire, and we went right in through the front door, and we made a really good push on it, and I thought we got it put out really quick. The truck got there right behind us and cut a hole and got some heat off of us, and everything seemed to be playing out just like they do every time up until then that I've fought a structure fire, just in and out and a lot of cleanup, right? Mm-hmm. The house was pretty toasted. There wasn't a whole lot of things to save. After we switched from the initial tack to, I think we were fixing to move to overhaul, and I was on my way out to rehab, and the truck captain saw me with the hose line and told me, hey, there's a small fire above the washing machine in the laundry room. So if you just go in there and knock that out and then go to rehab, and good job kind of scenario. So, I pulled the hose line out, went in the room. It was just a room where there's a it's like kitchen, and from my memory, it was a kitchen that went into a small laundry room, only big enough for a washer on one side, dryer on the other, and then it went out into the garage. So, I mean, there was nothing to it. I went in, stuck my head in the door, look above. On my left is the washing machine. Look up above, there's some fire coming out, hot spot. Open the nozzle, as soon as I hit it, I feel this big hit on my shoulder, on my left shoulder. It was like crazy. You would think you would know what you felt like when you get electrocuted, like when you get shocked. I've been shocked by 110. I've wired houses for a little while. I've done all kinds of things. But this wasn't that same feeling. So I get the hit on the shoulder. I look up. I really thought that somebody hit me with a pike pole, tapped me in the shoulder. But there's nobody directly behind me. So, I do it, reposition, hit it again, get the same pop on my shoulder. Looking up the ceiling, I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm in, but whatever I'm in, I don't like it. So, like any fireman, I wanted to complete my job, and probably better judgment now looking back, but I'm like, I'm just going to get in there. You know what I mean? I'm just going in there, and I'm knocking this out and getting out. Looking back, that probably wasn't the best move. But I made my way into it, opened the nozzle, and when I did, it just, I knew the third hit because I couldn't get away from it. So, the house was messed with. The guy, I'm guessing there were some weird electrical things going on with the house. And, I wish I could tell you a definite answer on exactly what happened. I don't know. There was a open box above the washing machine. So did it come down the water? Did it come through the dryer? The dryer was, 240 or whatever. Whatever I made contact with, I was stuck to on the third attempt. And my knee blew out, actually, and that's what broke the charge. So thank goodness.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So, for those that don't know the story, were you able to get out on your own? Did you have to be brought out? McGrath, were you at the fire?
Yeah. So the in Lewisville, obviously, if anything good happens, especially during a work day, we don't need too much urging to get out of the office. Mm-hmm. So we all showed up, as far as the admin chiefs, we all showed up within, as we run what's been termed as a 2-minute offense. So the first 2 minutes, everyone has a dedicated assignment, and barring anything unforeseen, everybody just does what they're supposed to do. So as we show up, staff officers, we fill command, we fill ops, then we go to Sector C, and then we start filling out from there, safety or division. It just so happened that fire I was division. So while all this was playing out, they had already knocked the fire out. Most of that was done when I walked in that house, and at that point we're just, it was. You don't want to use the word routine. You don't want to use the bread and butter or whatever. This was just a normal little small 1,500 square foot house, and nothing at all out of the ordinary as far as what we did in those first 2 minutes and what we did in the 20 minutes after that fact. When Andy was hurt, oddly enough, we have a script that addresses utilities. And there was some miscommunication. There was some things that happen every single day on everyone's fire ground. Nothing goes perfect. You mitigate the hazard, and you do the best you can to keep someone from getting hurt, which is what we thought had happened. But at the time that all this was transpiring, someone had actually got my attention, brought me into a back bedroom, and the wall. There was 2 wires from your light switch, wall light switch. The light switch was gone, and he just flicked the wires with his glove, and there was a small arc. And he was telling me, obviously he walked in there, and he said, "Hey, the power's not off." And literally as he said that, I turned around to walk back out, and someone said, "Hey, Andy got hurt." I didn't know what it meant. I just assumed, it's a knee problem, it's a back problem, whatever. And at that point, this house had a sliding glass door. All of that was gone, and Andy was sitting in the backyard at a picnic table. I just remember seeing him sitting out there, and of course, he's sitting there talking, which that's
good.
Hey, yeah, we'll mark that down as okay. So far, so good. And I didn't have any interaction with him. I was just looking out there, and he was taking his gloves off, and he was shaking like crazy. And at that point, it started to come around like, hey, we think he got shocked. And of course, given what this guy just told me, obviously we immediately readdressed our benchmarks to determine that we in fact had not secured the utilities in that house.
Okay, so from then, Andy, and I know you didn't know how bad it was until later.
No, I mean, it's with electrical injuries, stuff looking back that I've learned, a lot of it's internal. Mm-hmm. And, if you're to see me today, after you hear my injuries, you're probably, used this yesterday. I went to a doctor yesterday. They had 70 things down that had happened to me in my accident. And I walk in and, the doctor's just looking at me with these, these huge eyes. And I'm thinking, I know you probably thought that they were going to wheel me in here. But, it's just everything happened inside. So besides walking with a limp or seeing a ton of scars on me, it's crazy how damaged I got in the fire.
Yeah, it's really scary to think that, you did something that we do on every fire, mm-hmm. and that something went wrong this time. Not anybody's fault, just something happened. Now, were you able to go back to work, or was that it?
No, that day.
No, I'm pretty sure you didn't.
No, I didn't go that day. I did go back to work, and I had a lot of problems. But I did the typical. Was off for a couple of weeks. They look at everything. I see a doctor that doesn't specialize in anything that I'm hurt in really, and people probably think I'm going to use an example. I went to a doctor at this standalone clinic is where they made me go. They being workers' comp, the city. I don't
it's
know.
Occupational medicine.
Occupational medicine.
He discharges from the emergency room. Your next step is to go into occupational medicine, which contracts with the which I say that to say that almost every city out there is doing exactly
this
the
isn't
same thing.
This isn't a statement at anything.
My town has the same thing. Right. So you went to the ER. What did they say at the ER?
I had a couple. They used weird rhythm from my heart. I don't know what that was. It cleared up after about 6 hours. I had tremors for a couple of days. The biggest thing was they took my blood and there was a high level of some enzyme, which to them triggered, hey, you have muscle tissue breaking down.
Probably a CPK or a
Yes.
CKMB.
Yeah, and so it was really high. So they said, the problem is basically you're burning from inside out, but there's really nothing we can do at this point other than watch your levels.
And you're still burning.
You're still burning. So we will see this effect as time goes, but until that levels out, and we see the damage through an atrophy, if it's muscle or through some kind of internal organ problem later, there's no way of really pinpointing where this enzyme's coming from. Now, my first symptom actually was I had a really bad calf cramp. That's what I thought it was at the time. I in the hospital complaining, hey, my calf hurts. I don't know. Doing the athletic stuff growing up, I really just thought, here I am. I went to a structure fire. It was hot
Maybe
day.
Dehydrated.
Come out. I'm stressed after, all these things are going. Now I'm at the hospital. This is not how my day was supposed to go. So, yeah. Did I know that I was that hurt? No, but I knew something was wrong with my leg. And that's really was the starting point of everything. So I leave there, they give me these strict instructions, do this, do that, but I go home, I go to the occupational medicine, I don't have a problem with any of those things. It's just, if you broke your finger, this is probably the perfect route for you. As we look back, it's easy for me to say, hey man, that's the worst decision ever. I should have went somewhere else. But where else was I going to know? We didn't know. Mm-hmm. So I go in this place. I'm there for, I think I was off for 12 weeks. It's 12 weeks. A doctor walks in. She literally says, "Oh, so it's your knee hurting?" And I said, "Well, this knee hurts, but this calf's bothering me." And she goes, "Oh, pull your pants leg up." I'm like, okay, so I pull it up. She grabs it, feels around. She goes, "Well, it feels fine to me." And I said, "Well, it doesn't really feel that great to me." And she's like, "Well, I think 2 more weeks off and you'll be good to go." I said, "Oh, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. I'm eager." Amanda and I had been married for 5 months when I got hurt. She was 2 months pregnant, 3 months pregnant. And so, here I am, a baby on the way. I got a lot of things hanging over me. This injury that I know there's some problems going on. But I want to get back to work. I don't want to be the guy that's, milking the system. I'm trying to get back and do the job I love. Plus, I made a lot of promises to people. Whether I liked it or not, I was in the shadow of my dad from day one. He worked there for forever. Now, the landscape at Lewisville is a lot different now. And you know what I mean? But at the time, there was still a lot of the department that were there when he worked there. So, 12 weeks later, here I am, back to work. And, I meet in with, I don't remember who, I meet with admin or the city HR. They ask me how I feel. They're like, we got the notes, time for you to go back to work. We need you to go do a fit for duty and do this physical thing. I don't know, it's just a standard to get back to work.
Did you feel like you were ready to go back to work?
No, but I didn't tell anybody that.
Okay. You knew something was wrong.
I knew something. She knew something was wrong. I knew something was wrong. But
hang on just a second.
Go ahead.
Not to interrupt you. I want to go back to you. Amanda, you've been married, 5 months?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this happens. How did you survive this? My wife can't stand it if I take off more than 2 weeks and I'm home that much. So...
the first couple months when we really weren't sure what was happening, it was more of a day by day, like, we just got to get through this. This is a phase. We have no idea what's going on. We just need to figure it out. He was focused on just getting back to work, getting better and getting back to work. So the first few months, aside from the fact that we probably didn't sleep at all for a few months just because we were so worried and concerned and he was having different pains and issues going on, aside from that, it wasn't wasn't that hard on us because we were just getting through it, checking the boxes, doing what we were told. But overall, we've definitely made some communication changes, and our relationship is probably completely different than it was when we first got married.
Yeah, because, like I said, I worked at Lewisville and at Pilot Point.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was really working 48 on, 24 off. And
you're preparing for your family.
I'm preparing, and she was actually finishing her master's in business, and she's going to school down. She worked at Children's, Amanda did, and her undergrad was in nutrition and dietetics. So she was working in that section at Children's, Dallas. And so it's pretty hectic, we're just each going every way and trying to get ready for a baby and life. And to be honest with you, I didn't want to admit how hurt I was. I knew something was wrong, but I'm like, okay, man, I got to get back to work. What? There is no other option, right? You go back to work. And
it's all you know how to do.
It's all I know how to do, and I got some specialist or whatever that's telling me, hey, you're good to go. So, mentally, I'm preparing myself for this physical agility or the fit for duty test, and I'm telling her, I don't know if I can make it through it. And she's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't have a choice, right? I didn't know any of my rights. Here I am, a young firefighter. And, you go through the HR meeting when you get hired, you listen for about 7 seconds, and you're like, hey, where's the fire truck?
That's a long week.
Yeah, it's a long week. And you're like, hey, man, when do I get my first paycheck? That was my extent of knowledge of what happens after you get hurt, is that a couple-day class, I guess. So to me, there was no option other than let's make it happen. Let's get back to work. And, I did everything, passed everything miraculously. I don't know how now.
But you were in a lot of pain.
Yeah, I was hurting. But the first test, they told me, this is supposed to see how your back is. People with back problems don't pass this. I'm like, okay, well, here I am. I don't know what kind of test it's set up for, but, I'm over there just picking up this 5-pound weight.
Let me interrupt Andy. Andy broke his back.
Yeah.
Maybe now's a good time. I'm trying to figure the timeline of this story. Do you want to tell everything that's wrong with you, or do you want to wait until you find out?
I can tell everything's wrong. I want to keep everybody hanging on. Yeah. So I've had, I think I counted it up yesterday, I've had like 10 surgeries and like almost 40 mouths. I broke all my teeth out. And what's crazy is it's not like they just fell out like you got hit by the baseball bat. I killed all my teeth. Okay, so when I got hit with the electricity, I clenched up. Your muscles are a lot stronger than your skeletal system. So I shattered my back. I blew my knee out. I burnt my optic nerve. I burnt a nerve that doesn't, the vestibular nerve in my brain that doesn't grow back. Let's see. I had some brain damage. All these things. I had a catastrophic injury. And the problem when you have an injury that's catastrophic in nature like that, then a lot of times what I've learned through years of doctor's visits is it's really hard for the injured person to realize what's going on, because you go in 1 second and you come out and now your makeup is different. Brain's different. I'm thinking things different. I lost 3 inches of height in the however many seconds I was attached to this thing. It immediately changed my life, and all in the back of my mind, I'm just trying to figure out how to get back to the job. So, it was literally a lot of moving pieces.
Amanda, did you notice any of these changes?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. He was having, little things, like he couldn't unlock his phone. Couldn't remember the passcode to his phone. It's the passcode he uses for everything. So that was a big one for me. For the Fit for Duty test he's talking about, I drove him to it, and I drove him home after it, and he could barely move after it. But he did it. He beat it, and he got the fastest time of anyone at that point, because that's what firemen do.
It's typical.
He was
thinking.
told nothing was wrong with him, and he needed to go back to work and suck it up. So that's what he was doing. So I could tell something was wrong. My cooking's not bad. It may not be the best, but it's not horrible. And so one night we were having literally mashed potatoes and chicken or something, and 2 of his teeth crumbled. They didn't fall out. He took out shards of his teeth, and that's when we realized that something was wrong with his dental structure. So just little things just kept happening. He would say something about a color of something, and I'd be like, no, that's clearly red. And we would go back and forth about it, and then come to find out one of his optic nerves got burned, so he can see colors, but when I see cherry apple red, he sees this dull red. So just little things like that afterwards, we didn't know what was permanent, what wasn't. We had no one to help us at that point initially. It took us 8 months to get to Dr. Kowalski in Dallas, who is fantastic, and within 10 minutes of meeting with her, she gave us a list of 10 to 20 things that she knew he had damaged or had issues with. And so that was rough.
Okay.
That was a rough visit.
Before we return back to the interview, if you're feeling compelled to help individuals and heroes like Andy Allison, you can join us at Sons of the Flag in the campaign to help fund every firefighter in the United States that suffers a burn injury by taking the St. Florian vow. By taking the vow, you're committing to help every past, current, and future firefighter get the help that they need if and when they suffer a burn injury. By sharing a link out on social media and asking your friends and family to do the same. To do so, text the word JOIN, JOIN, to the number 682-204-1729. Click on the link that is sent to you. Then click on Create Florian Vow. Complete the requested information and please share it out. Or if you want to support Sons of the Flag, then you can go to sonsoftheflag.org and click the word donate. And if you or someone you know is in need of help, then email us at help@sonsoftheflag.org. Now back to our interview with Andy and Amanda Allison, Chief McGrath, and Chad Gruber.
To get to Dr. Kowalski in Dallas, who is fantastic, and within 10 minutes of meeting with her, she gave us a list of 10 to 20 things that she knew he had damaged or had issues with. And so that was rough.
Okay.
That was a rough visit.
So you passed the fit to duty test.
Yeah.
Do you go back to?
Yeah.
You go back to
Go back
shift work?
shift. Yeah. And I mean, they put me at a different station.
Uh-huh.
They knew I was still having problems, but we just didn't know the extent. I just told them I was still needing to. I mean, I was just literally, I'm hurting.
And it was what he said, 12 weeks. So
12
about
weeks.
3 months after the injury.
3 months after, and then I went back to work for, I think, somewhere in like 6 weeks or something. I don't know.
And you said Dr. Kowalski. How did you find out? What got you to find out what was absolutely wrong?
Go for it.
Well, one night he started having more vestibular damage, so he mentioned he burned that nerve. And so I remember him calling me because he had been on a call, and the lights at night had made him so dizzy
the engine
that he didn't know which way was which. And he immediately told his captain, and he took him away and got him off shift and was like, we got to figure something out. And so that kind of triggered us finding Dr. Kowalski. And then his mom just had been researching everything. And so she found her online. And so we finally got into her office, and she deals with this type of injury. Because, like you said, we were completely new to this. We had no idea that it could burn you on the inside like this, that we should be looking for those things.
And our first baby's here by now.
Yes, he
Yes.
is.
Yeah, first
He's
baby's here.
adorable.
And I mean, it was pretty wild. I like she said, I'm driving the engine actually to a structure fire. We had a fire at a car dealership or something. I don't even remember, a mechanic shop, and I'm driving the engine, and all the way there, I'm like so dizzy when I turn into the place that I'm like, man, something's wrong with me. I mean, I can't even see. And I get out and I walk over to my captain, who was, I grew up with the guy. He's my dad's best buddy. And I said, hey, I can't drive the engine anymore. And he looks at me and he's like, what do you mean? I said, man, something's wrong with me. I need some help. And I'm like, I can't see when the lights come on. I don't know how we got here. I mean, I know how we got here, the direction, but I don't know. I literally was so dizzy that I felt like I was going to fall down. And, a crazy part of that is, I tell them, look, I'll ride backwards, but until I get everything figured out, I'm not going to just take me off the engine rotation for driving, because I don't want to put y'all in that. I don't know what's going to happen. So we go back to the station, and it's late. So I go to bed, wake up, gotta go to the restroom, right? So I walk in. There's we have a urinal at the station. So at first I thought I fell asleep, which seems ridiculous when you're going to the restroom, right? But I closed my eyes, and I opened my eyes, and I'm laying against the tile, wall. How did my face get against the tile wall? That's so weird. So I'm like, maybe I fell asleep. Well, of course it wasn't that. So, then I test the theory like any good fireman. I'm like, okay, now if I stand back up, close my eyes, is this going to happen again?
You got to do research.
Yeah, well, I was on the hunt for figuring out an answer to this. It's the same thing, close my eyes, feel something cold on my face. I mean, I literally had no sense of falling. It was just, or movement. I'm just like, hey, this is crazy. So this all plays out into a crazy thing, because I call her, I tell her the next morning, she's got to go to school. I said, hey, on the way home, let's get breakfast. She's like, okay, let's meet at this park. Yeah, okay. So, I'm all stressed about work, and just, we meet at this park. We're in the swing set, right? We're talking, and she's swinging, and I'm just kind of whatever, complaining, I'm sure, about something. And I just decide that I'm going to swing in this thing. So I kick my feet back, and when I lift my feet off of the ground, literally, you would have thought that somebody scared me to death. Because I'm swimming in the air, freaking out. She's got to jump.
I thought he was joking.
She thought I was joking.
I didn't know what he was doing.
And I'm like, catch me,
It was bad. That's when we knew he had a real issue with
my this vestibular nerve. So basically, it's a senses. It's if my feet are on the ground and my eyes are open, like ear, nose, throat kind of scenario. As long as all my senses are working, I'm good. But you take the horizon away, which is what I was going through at night with the lights. You take the ground from under my feet, or you take my eyesight away, and my body doesn't know where I'm at in space, really, which is crazy. Now, I've went through tons of retraining for that, so I'm not, if I close my eyes, I'm not going to fall down right now. But I still have a lot of issues with that. So, I mean, at that moment, I'm like, uh-oh. we gotta do something. I don't know who I need to talk to, but I've got to go meet with somebody. I mean, literally, I think that if you put me in an ambulance, put me driving an engine, I may kill somebody. I mean, really, because I literally am having that many issues.
So now you're scared to work.
Yeah. I mean, there was just so many things going on. Just anxious and stressed. And
that gets you to Dr. Kowalski.
Yes.
And then we find out.
The first meeting really overwhelmed me. She wears these the shoes. Sounds like they're clogs almost. It sounds like I hear it coming tick 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 down the and I'm like, oh,
Crocs or
yeah,
something?
yeah. But they're like wooden sole.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So I hear them tapping down the deal, and she just comes whipping in, and she's like, all right, Mr. Allison. Well, she only sees people case by case. So we had to submit all my stuff. I don't know how it all worked out. So
she's at UT Southwestern. She's on
board of
faculty down there.
Yeah.
As a burn specialist.
Did you find her?
No.
How did we get to her?
Honestly,
my mom found her
they did
Googling.
their own homework.
Okay.
She found her Googling my son got electrocuted. Where do we go? And this doctor keeps popping up. She happens to be here. Well, she's wrote the book on electrical injuries. She works at Zell Shoes and here in Dallas, and she is on the burn team. She takes care of all electrical burns. A lot of times lightning strikes, things like that, that's where you go. She's got people come around from everywhere. She sees about 23 new cases a year of electrical injuries.
And we're 8 months after.
We're 8 months out, and, to me, that's crazy, like, what's going on with me? But, as I've learned, time is kind of the thing on this, with internal stuff.
Well, and to fill in this 8 months, he was referred to when he saw a neurologist who told him he was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So there were.
He was following he was following the rules.
And not to defend anyone along the way. I mean, if Andy came in and said, "Hey, I got a problem," some people tried to help, but we only know what we know.
Yeah.
And honestly, at this point, it's hard to even figure out what we're seeing today and relate it back to. We just know there's a bunch of weird stuff going on,
for sure.
So putting it all together was a.
Honestly,
challenge.
initially, I don't think there was anybody's fault to get me that 8 months. I will say that I had a case manager that didn't call me back for weeks, and we had a big fallout. But the city steps up; they get me a new case manager. We did everything that we could do on the initial stages of this. As things came up, we just tried to, mark them off.
Nobody knew. We had 2 doctors before we found Kowalski look at Andy and tell him, I usually work with older patients, geriatric, old age, and that's not what you are, so I don't know what to do for you.
We're not used to seeing somebody hurt like you are at your age, and especially multiple systems. You've got nerve injury, all these different things. You need to go to somebody that can handle that kind of injury.
And when we take that back to workers' comp, they didn't know who else to send him to, so we were just stuck. And that's when his mom started looking up, because we knew something was going on at this point. He had gone back to full duty, but then they moved him off when he had that issue at night, and so we knew something was going on, and we couldn't just not do anything.
Yeah, so, when we go into Kowalski, she comes bebopping in there, and she just starts spouting stuff off. She's already seen all my, whatever, the preliminary stuff. She's like, all right, first we need MRI, this, that, She goes through this all. Amanda and I are just sitting there, and I just got this, deer in the headlight look at her, like she just went through so many injuries. And, going into this, I didn't know what was wrong with me. So she's like, all right, we got a spine injury, we got, a brain problem, we have a communication in your brain, ear, nose, and throat scenario. We got to address your knee. She just keeps rattling these things off, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, okay, hang on. What was your name again? She's like, literally, she said a thing that just, it goes off in my mind every time I go into a doctor. She stopped what she was doing, everything. She turns around, she sits down, rolls over, puts her hand on Amanda and I's leg, and she says, look, I'm going to tell you a little bit about electrical injuries. There is the guy that's fine, the guy that dies, and you. And I'm sorry, but it's a gray area, and we have to figure out where you are. Are you the close to the death guy, or are you fine? She's like, and the way we're going to do that is, I like to call it a road map, and along this road, which is going to be the rest of your life, there's going to be a lot of stops. We're going to do a lot of things in the next couple of years. And she's like, unfortunately for you, in 20 years, there will be new things that are going to come up that we just realized have happened from your injury. And she's like, a couple of reasons. Going back to the catastrophic injury, my brain can't process that I have all these different problems. It can't differentiate between the 3 fractures in my upper back, blown disc in my lower back, blown knee. I'm dizzy. It's like going system malfunction. It's just saying wrong to me, and I can't differentiate. So she's telling me this is how this works. We take the biggest injury, we work down from there. As we fix your back, you're going to realize, hey, my arm hurts. Then we're going to have to address the arm. We're going to fix the arm, my finger hurts. She's like, you've burned these nerves. So we have to start at the initial part, brain back, work out from there. And so, it's like a 20-minute visit. She's in tears. We got the baby with us. She goes, go home, don't pick up a gallon of milk. As a matter of fact, you need to go home and lay in bed until this imaging comes back, but because I think your back is shattered. And I'm afraid that you may be paralyzed if you don't stop.
But you passed the back assessment.
Boom.
Fit for duty.
Fit for duty. Record breaking, So we leave there, we sit in the parking lot of this place, and both of us are just in tears. And now I'm trying to figure out how to call my boss and tell him, hey, all those other doctors that said I was crazy, they're wrong. But I got this doctor down here who says I'm crippled. What do you do at that point? It was wild.
It was bittersweet. It was good on one hand because we finally had answers, and he knew he wasn't crazy, and finally someone was telling him that he was accurate.
You knew what you were dealing with and what you were up against.
Because that was a big problem.
Even though we didn't know exactly what was wrong with his back or his brain or anything like that yet, we knew that we were going to find out. And that was reassuring. But at the same time,
you had hope at this point.
Yeah, we had some hope. We had somewhere where we were going. We weren't just stuck. But at the same time, we left, like he said, we walked out the door, and he's not allowed to lift more than 8 pounds. He's not allowed to drive. He's not allowed to do almost anything immediately until we figure it out. So it was very quickly another adjustment, just like when it first happened, that we had to go with. But
Chief McGrath, how did it hit Lewisville when you found this out?
Well, I would honestly say that part of this was that we felt a little of that relief as well, because up until now, I think the struggle is, and I'll be 100% candid with you, when you get somebody who says my back hurts, I can't put something tangible to that.
You can't quantify it.
I can't, right. So someone walks in and says, well, my back, I don't think I can work tomorrow because my back hurts, right? I'm a cynical person, and I have been my whole life. I've worked as a police officer. I look at things through a very sour lens. And so when people say something like that, right, you're instantly assessing it, thinking, is this real or isn't it? And a lot of times in Andy's situation, and just like doctors that are telling, well, this is in your mind, or what you're saying doesn't match what I'm seeing. And with Andy, and we say this all the time now, is that Andy is fighting right now for disability benefits, and if you look at him, you kind of if he wasn't wearing that back brace sitting there in that chair, I don't know, it's just Andy.
Yeah.
But he's got a lot of issues, and there's issues we don't even know about yet. So going back to the fire department, there was a lot of relief for us that somebody could actually put a label on this and actually say, no, this is what happened, and these are the hurdles you gotta step through. So it was I think is a big relief for them. For those of us on my side of the situation that were sitting out here just wondering, I had gotten to a point with Andy that, and because I know his family very well, I know his dad very well, and then obviously I've gotten to know Andy very well. I knew him pretty well at the time he was injured, so that helps a little bit of that skepticism. And I know that in having conversations, because he was always real good about calling in and updating, hey, I went to a doctor and this is what they said. And so you get the impression that I think the bulk or the quantity of stuff that Andy was throwing out there, like you're thinking, hey, this guy didn't make this up, man. I mean, this is so far over the hill on this side that you truly have to be mental to be able to come up with the quantity and the level and the intensity of the stuff that he's describing to you. The other thing is that we more or less enabled Andy. Well, I mean, I'll say on our side. So Andy comes back, he goes through a fit for duty. I mean, it's not our job to question, right? He went through the medical process. They said, hey, you can come back to work. And we have people now that go, you guys let him drive an engine? Like, well, we didn't know anything was wrong with him.
Yeah. I didn't either.
And Andy didn't either. But you think about that, apply that to any firefighter out there that you know. You've got, you get up, I mean, I'm 52 now. I get out of bed at any given time. Something weird's going on, but you're just assuming you're going to get through the other side of this, right? That it isn't actually a stroke. It just feels like I can't feel my arm.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine that at his age, especially, he's invincible, and he's gonna provide for his family. He's got a new kid. He loves being a fireman.
So yeah.
So he's not looking to come to work to go, hey man, I'm tapping out. I can't do this. So it's just it's a perfect storm.
Yeah.
So we found out what's going on. What was next? Did they started fixing you? I know you had to retire.
Well, no, that was at the time. I didn't know that I was retiring. I didn't know anything. I mean, they start down the path to fix me. I go in, I leave her office, I wait the time, get the approvals, do all the jump through the hoopla kind of scenario. I go get the first image of my back, and I'm 6'8", so I'm tall. They get the special machine over there, and the dude, I see him behind the glass, and they're, he's like, looks at me, looks at the image, and he looks at me, and he's like, hey man, comes around the corner, he says, whoo, we got big problems. And I'm like, what do you mean big problems? He's like, man, I don't know how you're walking, man. Your back is just broke to pieces. I'm thinking, uh-oh, that's not good.
Well, I don't know if you've ever had imaging done.
Yeah, you never want to see the guy behind the camera go,
We've
uh-oh.
been to a lot of doctor's appointments, and he's had a lot of different testing done. And every time we try to say, like, hey, how'd it look? What'd it look like to you?
Yeah,
What's that? And they're all like, oh, wait for the doctor.
Yeah.
The doctor will let you know. Doctor will let you know. So when he said that and was like, you might want to just wait here and I'll go get someone, we knew that wasn't a good sign.
Let me go get the specialist real quick, because I don't know if you need to move. And I'm like, and I see him back there, I go to the visit, and the doctor's like, oh man, yeah, you've got blown lower disc, blown upper disc. I mean, we got 3 compression anterior wedge fractures, in your thoracic. Basically, like you got tuna canned, you got twisted. These are spiral wedge fractures. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And he's like, well, you've lost the height, but also you have a hunchback now, which she had been telling me for months. She's like, at dinner, set up straight. She kept telling me that. She's like, you have the worst posture. And I'm like, I'm trying to set up straight. I am. And I'm
okay.
Okay, whatever. Here we go. Here it comes.
We all know firemen. And you can say, hey, I think something's wrong, or is this bothering you? And especially Andy, who just tries to push through everything. He's fine. It's fine. Nothing's wrong. It's totally okay. So instead, if you just give him a hard time that he can't sit up straight, eventually he'll say, wow, I literally cannot sit up straight. And
Just
then
shame
he'll
him into
acknowledge
wellness.
it.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're right. I am hunched over, So, here I am sitting in there, and they got this image, and, the doctor's like, oh, you're like 30 degrees or 29 degrees kyphosis. And I'm like, okay, what's that mean? He's like, you're bent over. And I'm like, okay, well, what are we going to do? And he's like, well, we got a bunch of problems. And I'm like, yeah. So that is literally the back is where we started. And, I had one of the bigger things I had to have full reconstructive thoracic surgery. Thoracic is not a common place for you to break unless you're in like a major car wreck or something, because you don't have a whole lot of movement in the thoracic. So typically people that they hurt their neck or their lower back. So I got a blown disc up. They put this artificial disc, go through my stomach. I'm just all these crazy things. And it's just like, once I hit Kowalski's door, it's like every couple months I'm in the operating room. It's like bam, bam, bam. I'm getting surgery. I'm losing weight. I lived in a rehab hospital. I'm learning how to walk again, put my shirt on. It took me like 3 weeks. We're celebrating me putting a shirt on. They literally... 9-hour surgery for my thoracic. They had to break all the vertebrae again. They thought I had a tumor in the spinal canal because I went back to work and did all these things for months. I actually bled into the spinal column, put pressure against the spinal cord to where it was against the back wall. So now I've got 2 things working against it. I got this blood in there that's put pressure, and I'm leaning forward on top of it. So the doctor's telling me, and Amanda, I don't know how you're walking. Like literally, you're stretching your spinal cord. So we have the surgery. They take me in. They put me in this crazy table, the inversion table. So they start the surgery one side, flip me over, put me on another. It's just this nuts deal, right? So they do 6-level fusion, which is, when they tell me they're going to do this, of course, I'm on Google looking up, trying to figure this thing out. Nothing. Can't find hardly anything on 6 levels. It's just like a scoliosis surgery is what I'm having. So they do that. They open my spinal canal. They pull out this gel-like materials, blood, and, they go and tell her. They come out to the waiting room and...
Well, so his surgeon beforehand had explained to us how we had a window of time because the angle of his spine was almost to this dangerous spot. So just for an example, I believe they said like 30 to 35 degrees, people can lose feeling and function below their waist. And then if you get closer to the 40-degree range, then you're talking about being paralyzed. So we're jumping through the hoops for workers' comp. They have him on all these limitations because we're just waiting to get the green light from workers' comp and hoping that he doesn't damage anything worse. And so they get him in thinking that he's in that 30-degree range. And his surgeon actually came out halfway through, and he pulled me aside and just, it was very emotional and overwhelming because he just kept apologizing to me because he said, your husband's very tall. He was very fit before he got injured. Soon as we opened him up and cut through those back muscles, his spine just immediately bent over more, and he was at 41 degrees. And I don't know how he's walking, and I'm so sorry we didn't get this done sooner. And me, it was a lot of information, but I'm just happy that he's walking, and I think it's a huge blessing. And thank goodness he was in such fit shape and was an athlete, and he and his buddies did the whole workout stuff, whatever the trend was at the time. Now it's CrossFit at the station, because if he hadn't been, then he might have not been walking right then. So it was a lot, and that was probably the scariest surgery, not just because of how big it was, but that was the one that he ended up in the ICU, and he had a drain out of it, and the nurse laid him on top of the drain, so it wasn't draining and it was kinking. So his blood pressure was so high that they were bringing the crash cart in, and they didn't know what was going on until the doctor finally figured out your drain's blocked, and then they figured that out and got it settled. But that was hard, and our oldest was 1.5 at the time, so I'm juggling him, trying not to let him see his dad in the hospital, not to know what's going on. He's a baby, and worrying about him and taking care of him. It was a lot, but that was probably a really big step in his, healing or recovery that we're still on. So that was 2 years into the injury that we finally got to that point.
So just give you a perspective, one back surgery of any magnitude is a long recovery. Mm-hmm. You're looking at 6 months to a year for most back surgeries, disc replacement, disc fusions. Okay, so my recovery estimated on my thoracic was 18 months. And on top of that, I had 3 back surgeries in a calendar year. I had a lower disc replacement, the 6-level fusion, upper disc replacement, all with, to the date, February the 17th was my first one. February the 17th of the next year was my 3rd surgery. And in the middle, here I am trying to recover from one, and I can't even recover before I'm back in the door. It was crazy. It was literally, it was wild.
All while trying to juggle a new family.
Worry about my job and what's going to happen. I pretty much knew going into the big one. That was the second. So they did the lower back first. Then they go into the, this was 2014 in July. Okay? So we're 2 years out because I got hurt in August 2012. 2 years out, and here I go into the surgery, and I go in knowing I'm never stepping foot on the engine again. I'm never going back to work. He knew it. She knew it. Nobody wanted to say it, right? Because initially when I first got hurt, my driving force was because how often do you find the job you love? I had an opportunity to do a lot of different things. I did a lot of different things growing up. I loved being a firefighter. So, everybody initially thought that, well, this is Andy's driving force for getting healthy. It's not just the back surgeries. It's all the other. I had knee surgery. My teeth are falling out. So it's all these things that are piling on to me, and initially all I could think was my driving force is to get back to the engine, my family and the engine, and doing this stuff at work. And so nobody wanted to say what was really happening, and that was, hey man, you're not going back. Right? Because nobody wanted to put me in a scenario where I had to admit it, but we all knew. I mean, I had people donating me time at that time. I mean, everybody stepped up, and I had people coming and helping us at the house. And
my sister was living in Australia at the time, and she surprised us and flew home for 3 months.
And I know,
just to help.
I remember the story from being a fireman in Addison. Lewisville did everything for you, correct? They were being very helpful.
Yes, they were being very helpful. There wasn't a hurdle that that they weren't willing to jump on board. I mean, they still have rules, right? I mean, they have rules that are state rules for workers' comp, and if there was a way around it, we took the way around it. I feel like that is how this whole scenario started.
Well, and not only, that's from like more of an HR standpoint, but there was a surgery that Chief McGrath came and picked up Andy and helped me get him home, because he's a very tall man, and he couldn't fit into our car without bending his neck, but his surgery had been on his neck. So he drove and helped do that. Lewisville allowed his brother to ride on the medic to transport him from the hospital to his rehab facility as well. So little things like that really made a difference for us. A retired fireman has a landscape business now, and he made sure I didn't have to mow the grass with a newborn because Andy couldn't. So he made sure someone was there to help me out, and that was awesome.
Yeah, so there was a lot of step up. But there was as many people as were stepping up, there was still a lot of miscommunication. It's the fire department, everybody talks, right? I had my first back surgery. A year in, guy shows up. Well, first off, I get a text, hey, will you shift swap with me tomorrow? I'm like, I sent him a picture of my stomach, this big old cut on it. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to make it. I think I'm out right now. A couple weeks later, a dude knocks on the door. She answers, hey, a fireman down here to see you. I go see him, and he's
I'm
like,
pumped. I think he's there to visit
somebody's
Andy
visiting
after
me.
surgery.
Because it was pretty dark days. It was quiet.
He didn't know where Andy was. He thought he was just on vacation. Had
Yeah.
no idea.
He thought I was on administrative
it's
leave. He thought I was in trouble. He's like, we were thinking about you the other day, and we're like, man, where's Andy at? And I knew I had a rent house over here, so have you been in trouble? And I'm like, no, man, I'm not. I don't think I'm in trouble, but yeah, I've been hurt. So it was, there's so many pieces to the story. If I'm jumbling around, I'm sorry.
No,
I couldn't drive.
I think we're going pretty on straight. I'm going to take a break here real quick.
Sons of the Flag was founded in 2012 by Ryan Birdman Parrott. We are a nonprofit organization committed to supporting military, first responders, and their families through a burn injury by providing funding for innovative research. We bring together passionate community leaders, pioneering physicians, experienced military service members, dedicated first responders, and purposeful civilians to complete our mission. Here at Sons of the Flag, we have several programs that we are involved in: Mission Reconstruct Freedom, medical fellowships, and providing burn-needed equipment to the local burn centers. Mission Reconstruct Freedom is identifying the surviving burn veteran or first responder in need of reconstruction. Via Skype will be used to allow the reconstructive surgeons to evaluate and record reconstructive needs and plan the procedures required to improve the patient. The patient will be transported to Tampa, undergo the necessary procedures, and receive mental support as necessary. Once the care is completed, the survivor will join a registry so future needs will be recognized and addressed. The Medical Fellowship Program plays a vital role in helping medical institutions educate the next generation of physicians, researchers, and healthcare professionals, while also enhancing the medical center's ability to recruit some of the most brilliant minds in medicine. Additionally, Sons of the Flag receives requests from burn units across the country to pay for various needs within the burn unit, including equipment. Each request is fully vetted and consideration is given for funding. We'd also like to thank FDIC for having us out and meeting all the individuals that make Sons of the Flag who we are. The donations that we receive will further help military veterans, first responders, and their families. We thank you for meeting each one of our task force members, meeting Ryan Birdman Parrott, and helping us carry out our mission to help veterans, first responders, and their families. And from the bottom of our heart, we thank you dearly for it, and we must thank FDIC again for having us out. Thanks for listening in tonight for the first part of this series with Andy and his wife Amanda and Chief Terry McGrath on Sons of the Flag Radio. Be sure to follow us on all social media at Sons of the Flag, and be sure to check us out online at sonsoftheflag.org. Until next time, remember, train hard, love the job, stay passionate, and stay safe.
March in line.